which is operating in this system, then they do not expose their plans to the other side. Now, the reason why I have given this example is because the government is one party and the people is another party. And the government is, in fact, adversarial in as much as that they are a for-profit and gain corporation. And because of that, certainly to facilitate their ability to make a profit, then they do not do full disclosure to the adversary, which is the people. And so many times the people are certainly not very aware of the game plan of the predatory corporations. And so what our job has been as educators, and not just by myself, but certainly there are many across the country. But anyway, what our aim has been to educate people in commerce and the procedures and the different things that go on and so forth, so that they can protect themselves from basically predatory corporations.
And is this something that is built into the law so that you have redress against this? And it's just that people don't know that they do have the tools to fight, and that's what you're educating them about.
Well, actually, I like to go back to that word you use, fight. And fight is not one of the things that we do.
Yes, sir.
In commerce, we make agreements.
Very good.
We do not fight with one another over those things. And if we uphold our agreements and everything goes well, if something happens with the agreement to our detriment, then we take steps to correct that. And so, well, some of the words that we use in commerce are a bit different.
Yes.
Than you find in some of the other law forms and so forth. For instance, the word redress. I mean, that kind of goes back to the common law. In the admiralty or in commerce, we would probably say remedy or something like that. So again, a lot of times when we start to discuss the various concepts, sometimes we have to be careful of our wording, because if you mix some of those words, then you come out with incorrect logic. But we'll work through that.
Well, that's something, I guess, that really has to do with that when you start to work on a remedy, that you are using documentation, you are using the forms and all the legalese that's available. So it is very important to use the language or the code at the level and in the jurisdiction, I guess, or not the jurisdiction, but within the code that you are using to file your remedy. So you can't crisscross some of these terms. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Well, yeah, it has to do with the way the mind operates. Our ability to think depends on the words we know to use.
Very good.
For instance, people who go into the public education system, they test their IQ.
Yes.
And people think that's intelligence, but it's not. It's simply a word test to see how many words, that the young person actually knows how to use, because our logic is based on the words that we know and how we're able to use them. And so somebody might have a genius IQ in common law, but be considered a blithering idiot in admiralty, because the words are different. However, one of the beauties of the admiralty maritime jurisdiction is that it deals with contracts. And if you study the concepts of contracts, and that's not exactly the right word because we're in bankruptcy, the technical word would actually be agreements, but we'll say contracts because people are generally familiar with that.
Yes.
But anyway, anytime you enter into a contract/agreement, certainly you should define the words and how they're going to be used in that context of that contract agreement. Because, again, it is the agreement of the parties that creates the law of the contract.
Yes.
So many people because of this adversarial problem and not understanding, of what's going on, they become involved in what's called implied contracts or adhesion contracts and so forth. And in many instances, even the words in those instances are not even defined. Now, what you can do, certainly if you find yourself in those kind of circumstances, is you can go back and you can define the words that are being used according to your definition. And if the other party does not disagree, then certainly those other words and the definitions are to be used in this contract. So the world of admiralty maritime commerce involving contracts and agreements and so forth is a lot simpler than a lot of people understand. For instance, if you want to study the common law or the equity forms and so forth, there are multitudes of volumes in the law library, too numerous to count, in fact, that simply have the usage of the words and so forth they use. But
yes.
In admiralty, you can go into contract and define the words that you're going to use in that contract without having to go to the law library to find out what those words mean. Simply define them in a common sense way that you would use them.
How interesting.
Sure.
But they are guided by what principles then?
Whatever principles that you and the other party agree upon.
So that's why when we are talking about money, the dollar is such because we agree that that is a dollar, even though its value isn't a dollar. Commerce is all in the eyes of the beholder then.
Yeah, kind of getting into quantum physics there a little bit. But, what has happened is that the people, generally not understanding how these things operate, have neglected to fortify their contracts. And if there are any spaces or any gaps in your contracts, equity will always fill the void. So you have to be careful of that. So you have to get your contracts firmly in place. For instance, a moment ago, I heard you mention something about UCC1, financing statement, those kind of things.
Right.
Certainly, prior to any UCC1 filing, the one should have gotten into some sort of, I'm just trying to, the word just slipped my mind now, security agreement. Now, your security agreement, that you write, which is self-authenticating, means it creates itself. Your security agreement with your debtor/strawman certainly should not leave any cracks in there any place so that equity could come in. So when we use security agreements, certainly one of the most important things we do is we define the words that we're going to use in this contract and what they mean. And so then we go ahead and arrange our security agreement in a form of a contract/agreement, define the words and all those things. And so once the contract is in place, then we take that contract to the UCC1 finance statement as notice to the public of our private contract, you see.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. On the line's Winston Shrout. His website is www.WSSIC, Winston Shrout SolutionsInCommerce.com. He's going to be in town November 5th, 6th, and 7th down at the lovely 4 Points Sheraton at LAX. This is, I am so fortunate to be able to have him here on KPFK. I know he does radio and in other places and really brings impacting information to the public. It's my first time with him, and I'm so excited.